Okay, let's start at the far end again. And Raina, if you can just give us a little bit of details on yourself and any little bits about information about your company, your organization, it would be great.
Okay, thank you. I had the chance yesterday already for displaying something what we are doing. So I was focusing on satellite IoT. As said, my name is Rainer Wansch. I'm heading there the RF and SatCom systems department inside Fraunhofer. IIS Fraunhofer is the Europe's largest applied research organization. We are in satellite communications, I don't know, since 25 years, something like that, or a little bit more. Starting with world space and then XM satellite radio, so broadcasting, not really communication. It's part of the communication, at least you have the downlink. Yes, and since around now 10 years, we are also involved in 3GPP and trying to set our mark there, and especially focusing on non-terrestrial networks.
Antonio?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Antonio Franchi. I'm working with the European Space Agency. I'm based here in the UK, in Harwell, south of Oxford, and I've been working with ESA for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I was with Inmarsat, now Viasat, for over 20 years. And currently, I'm leading a 5G, 6G non-terrestrial network program office. So we're promoting the convergence of terrestrial and non-terrestrial network, and we support space industry in their development capability to develop infrastructure, technology, products, and services compatible with 3GPP standardization and 5G and 6G.
That's good. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex Sinclair. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of the GSMA, so the only non-satellite person here. I've been in telecoms for around 42 years, and I did spend 8 years in satellite in the late 90s when the first LEO boom started. Sadly, I went bankrupt twice, so maybe I should talk less about that. For the last 20 years, I've been CTO at the GSMA. If you don't know who we are the industry association for all the mobile operators around the world. It's about 700, and we have about 200 or 300 other members as well. Now that satellite is becoming mainstream with the 3GPP stuff, then we are also, of course, taking a close interest, and we're not doing it alone. I'm very well situated between these two partners because we have a cooperation agreement both with Isabelle and with Antonio. So.
Very good. Isabelle?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm really happy to see everybody back in a room at 2:30 because I was in Latin America last week, and to get anybody before 3 o'clock when the meeting started at 1 was quite a challenge. Well done, all of you. But no, so my name is Isabelle Mauro. I'm the Director General of GSOA. I guess by now you all know who we are. We represent 70 members in the satellite industry. Of course, not only operators in all orbits, but also Earth observation. Operators, launchers, ground segment, of course, manufacturers. So we really represent the broad area of all. We merged, as you all know, 2 years ago now with GVF. So all of you will know my colleague Irina Petrov in the room, probably for much longer than me. I've been at the GSOA for 2.5 years, nearly 3 years now. Previously, 15 years. At GSOA with so Alex and I, crossed paths for over 15 years, and then was at the World Economic Forum leading all the tech industry there. So coming to this industry at such an exciting time. I guess you did the jump the other way. I'm doing it this way, and hopefully I'm doing the successful jump, to the industry. It's just really great to see how this is, the industry is now thriving, and yeah, very happy to be there.
Yasir?
Yeah, my name is Yasir Babiker. I'm the CTO of Saudi Netlink. My colleague yesterday, I think he made a presentation about company, what we do. But basically, we are in the ground segment. We are a GSOA member, as you understand, and we provide teleport services and system integration in the ground segment. And we provide service to both satellite operators and GSM operators at backhaul services. So we see the direction of integration between GSM and satellite. It's becoming more relevant, and we are aligning with this direction. We are very happy to have this conversation now.
Okay, so let's get this off to start on one of those hot topics that a lot of people can't find any information on, so I'm hoping you guys have. IRIS². What are we hearing about what the system has to offer in terms of 5G, 6G services, and what can we expect in that? Antonio?
Okay, you start with the most difficult question. I'm not supposed to talk about IRIS² in public, but apart from that, IRIS² is a large European Commission program. ESA, of course, is a technology partner in charge of infrastructure implementation. So we are driving some of the design aspects as well as implementation aspects. It's a very large, multi-year, multi-billion euros technology program aimed at government services for Europe. It is public domain that has adopted the 5G standards for their constellation, multi-orbit constellations, and there are various orbital components of the IRIS² system. The idea is provide a converged system for Europe, to maintain the sovereignty of Europe in a harmonized way among all European member states, and following 5G standardization. The consortium has been created. Space Rise Consortium is operational in Europe, and we as ESA support partially, also financially partially. So we will have our ministerial conference in November this year, in next month, in which some for the subscription devoted for IRIS² will be devoted. This is just a small element of the financial envelope that we ask for the entire telecommunication, satellite telecommunication industry. Just to give you an order of magnitude, normally ESA, we have roughly 700 million euros a year devoted to satellite telecommunication, so roughly 2.1 billion over 3 years period. Of this, just a small fraction today is foreseen to be devoted for IRIS². The majority is for commercial satellite developments, R&D technology development in Europe, and all kind of technology outside IRIS². So I think that's an introduction. That's as much as I can say.
Anyone else? Are you seeing any partnerships or approaches to the GSMA with your memberships, or is that still on a bit of a back foot?
Not specific to IRIS, no, but we've just actually published our satellite and NTN tracker last month. And these are basically the new relationships, because obviously we've had relationships for more than 20 years. But we've got 28 live commercial SNO, MNO agreements, 82 planned. And together that accounts for about, because they're obviously fairly large operators, that accounts for about 70% of the 8 point whatever it is billion global connections at this point in time. So it's pretty significant. And honestly, there's practically a new one every month. I think Rogers was the last one I saw with Starlink. I think that was last month. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an area that's heating up. We've worked out that on average, each of the MNOs has a relationship with 1.4 SNOs. So obviously, they're not typically just going with one provider, but it's very healthy. I mean, it's quite, all that in the last couple of years, it's a very healthy development.
And do you see any trends in regions, or is there certain regions taking the lead and others following, or is it across the board?
Well, we do have the stats in the report, but obviously each region is different. I mean, if you're looking at countries like Canada, Australia, and Russia, then satellite's got to be pretty important. Europe is a little bit more challenging. We see a lot in the Middle East, Africa. The largest single number is Asia-Pac, but that's because it covers such a very broad range, and that's not, by the way, including the 3 very large Chinese operators who will also be launching fairly soon as well.
Okay, so standardization, such a necessity in the satellite industry. Has been various aspects that we haven't really standardized at all, but speaking to the mobile operators, it's almost a must for them that the satellite gets itself in order, gets those standardizations in place. Rainer, I think you have validation, testing.
Yes, so we have the chance that we have a program financed by ESA, so the 6G LINO, which will build up a 16, I think it's a 16U, CubeSat, having a regenerative platform on board, which we can program, and there we try to implement a complete G-Node B, so we can do end-to-end testing. We will also provide some handover scenarios. It's only one satellite, so we can't do any, let's say, satellite handover kind of thing. There's the second one missing. Maybe there's a chance that there's additional funding in the future, but at least we can test the handover between satellite and terrestrial and how this can work, and that's addressed in this program, and also doing some 6G waveform tests, so figuring out if there's differences between 5G advanced, 6G waveforms, if at all. That's something we could test with that. So it's a very nice demonstration and verification platform, which is hopefully in orbit, beginning of 27, and after the first experiments, which are financed by ESA, then this platform is available for public testing, more or less. So we can use it for, I don't know, if there's some automotive guys trying to test things, if there's different other use cases. We really have a platform in orbit which provides the waveform, which provides the complete free GPP stack on board the satellite, and to do different testings with that. So that's really a nice asset which we have then in Europe for this kind of
And that's a partnership
verification
with ESA and Surrey University.
Yeah, so to complete this, the consortium exists of Deutsche Telekom is in little involved. Then we have additionally from Germany TSAT, which does the onboard platform, so the hardware. Fraunhofer, we will do all the software which runs on this platform. Open Cosmos from England will produce the satellite itself, and Surrey, University of Surrey, Barry Evans and Michael Fitch, they will do also some experiments in UK. So we have 2 landing sites, more or less. We are currently applying for the frequencies to make this happen, but there's one in Germany and there's also one in UK, and we can do experiments on both sides, and that's really a nice thing.
So, Isabelle, you're very interested, obviously, in the partnerships and the business aspects of this. You know, what will that 5G, 6G partnership with the GSM association, you know, bring to the market? What can we expect in terms of rollout and scale out?
So I think, you know, the starting point for when we started scaling up is really the involvement that we started having in 3GPP, and you mentioned it before in terms of standards, and I want to emphasize that because it was really a game changer. Release 17 was really the game changer for 5G. For 6G, it's going to be even more exciting because we are there from the onset. So release 18 and 19, we are no longer going to take the train, you know, once it's left the station already, we are really there in terms of standards. So I think that is really important. Same thing for ITU, IMT 2030. The timing established for satellite services is now in line with terrestrial. And so for 6G, in particular for 6G devices, this is going to be really important. Because again, on 5G, we had about a 4-year nearly, you know, like sort of lapse. So that is really, you know, critical from the standard side. But if you look at 5G and 6G and how all of this is going to be working, and I link it as well to terrestrial and non-terrestrial integration, because now it's just satellites being integrated into the whole, the overall ecosystem, this fabric of a, I think we used to call it a network of networks. In terms of partnerships, we are seeing all sorts of partnerships. I think Alex has just mentioned it. You know, you have increasingly operators that, in particular, as we look at sort of applications or services such as D2D and IoT. So satellite IoT, for instance, is one where we see a lot of cooperations, partnerships between you know, the satellite operator and the mobile operators. And that in particular, I think that type of application, which is a little bit, in my view, underestimated because there is such a hype about D2D, D2D. Everybody talks about D2D, but actually what is happening on the ground currently, it's, satellite, it's IoT is happening. And I think the beauty of bringing satellite into the game of the IoT is that you actually can reach areas that are so desperate for connectivity. And what you give, it's not just an opportunity to a user who's going to look at its phone and whatever usage we make of our phones as private consumers, but also enterprise, young entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa, in Southeast Asia, that you are fishermen, farmers for agriculture, for logistics. So I think that is truly going to be a game changer. I think the figures at the moment that we have estimates that the market is going to grow to 4.7 billion by 2035. That's a growth of 26% annually. So I think there, it's definitely one of the area where 5G, 6G, and this integration satellite is going to bring. And then, of course, D2D. D2D, I think, that's where we are seeing most partnerships at the moment as well. Most, are our members, AST, Link, all the operators you work with. Some are members directly with GSMA. We work very closely with Alex's team and with ESA. We've signed a cooperation agreement. And I think, and I always say this, but I think getting the right business model in those partnerships is going to be critical. So you have two sides of the equation. You have two parties, you have two industries. And when you sit at the table, like GSOA doesn't do business. That's not what we do, so we don't get involved in the commercial agreements. But what is important is that we find a framework for the business model where it's going to be balanced for everybody. There's going to be a fair return on both sides. Because if that doesn't happen, and we've seen it in other industries, then you go into a long battle for years and years of arguing, I am not the pipe, I don't want to be just the pipe, I need my fair share of revenues. And I think that's what we need to avoid. And the beauty, I think, is that we are all sitting at the table together at the early stages, if you want. And so we hope, that all these partnerships will be fruitful for everybody and eventually be fruitful for the customer, whether it's government, for government services, enterprises, or simply users. So that to me would be the key. And as a final word, to find the bundle and to find the product that is going to be attractive for the customer. And Alex, I think you can back that up. We heard about 3G for years on end. Even when I was a GSOA, 3G. Everybody heard about 3G. Nobody knew what 3G actually did. And it took the iPhone to pretty much have this mass, understanding and demand for applications and 3G because it was easy. So sometimes you need the killer app. And in D2D, I think we will also need to make sure that, what we do is resilient, that it's interoperable, that you don't lose the signals when you roam from one satellite to mobile, and that it's going to be affordable as well for the customers, So a lot to look forward to.
I think most of us remember the 3G days well and the hype leading up to that. And before that, there was the WAP, wasn't there, the 2.5G? And kind of 3G did what WAP was supposed to do, and maybe 4G got close to what 3G was supposed to do. And it was back in the good
Can
battle.
I just add one thing? Because before we move off from standards, the other thing you shouldn't forget is the device, the terminals.
Yeah.
Because of the breakthrough with Release 17, there are now literally hundreds of millions of devices that are at least in some way compatible with satellite. Yeah. And that means that's the beginning of scale. And scale is everything you need when it comes to sort of terminals and handset pricing. We're not quite there yet. It'll be some time before we see Release 18 devices, probably next year. But when you see it, you mentioned the iPhone. When you see satellite capability in every sort of Apple and Samsung device, at least the high-end ones, that has a massive impact on the satellite business as well, because otherwise, there's 1 billion handsets a year still sold, and that means there's a ton of innovation. It's not just about modems, all the other features that go with it, and that's something that typically you haven't seen in satellite or in military systems. So I think that's something we shouldn't forget.
Yeah. And scaling up like on that.
Yeah, it's kind of what I try and work out sometimes is, what's going to be narrowband, what's going to be, a bit of a wider band. And it's quite difficult the way some of the companies sort of publish what they're up to. is to actually get the truth about what we're going to actually experience in that. And I guess Antonio's in a good position with these within the ESA there to experiment and do all the testings and the verifications and things. So 3GPP, if you can just go into how this can be utilized by satellite companies, to deliver these services, like messaging, or is it going to be a call, to different handsets, different devices that they said. I was talking to Iridium, and he's going to be on the either the 18 or the 19 release, putting his software up there, messaging direct to an Iridium handset now. And this, he's doing partnerships out there, on a monthly basis now. The releases come in. So Antonio, can you take over and just kind of give us a good feel of what it's going to bring to the market?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think a lot has been said already between Alex and Isabelle. They opened up a lot of topics which are going to drive the market. Economy of scale is actually the most important one, and that's the entire reason why we are pushing so much the standard for satellite, is to achieve those economies of scale which allow the satellite service to be provided at a price which is on equal stand with the terrestrial services. To do that, you need to not only adopt the standards, but develop the chipset and user terminal integration, which would allow satellite to be received by any terrestrial device, which is the ultimate goal of direct-to-device. And the market is huge, as already mentioned by Isabelle. I think you will have seen in the last few weeks, the stakes have been raised even higher. For example, with Starlink, acquiring rights to access satellite spectrum globally from EchoStar. And there are lots of signal in this step. First of all, that the debate between whether to use terrestrial spectrum or satellite spectrum, you cannot need both. That's what Starlink said. Second one is that acquiring satellite spectrum rights for something in the region of $17 billion plus $2 billion on share option, like $19 billion. This is the value that Starlink puts on the spectrum for direct-to-device. So that put a whole different perspective to this space industry of what it takes what are the market opportunities to provide services directly to a device. So for Europe, this is a big wake-up call, and so we believe very much in the direct-to-device market as well, and we think that Europe needs to have a strong response and prepare the European space ecosystem to respond on this direct challenge. To do this, I think standardization is one thing, but it's not necessary. What's necessary is to develop the technologies and put in place the demonstration test bed and capability in orbit to demonstrate these new services. New services ranging from automotive, as already mentioned, I think, by Rainer, but transport in general over maritime, aeronautical, and land mobile services, but also things like agriculture services, IoT device for agriculture, or other services like the digitalization of the healthcare system. So providing medical services globally, everywhere, ubiquitously, telemedicine, and this kind of application that have already been expected from 5G, but then moving on from 5G to 6G are also very, very important. So what we're doing, I think Rainer mentioned 6G Lino. 6G Lino stands for 6G Laboratory in Orbit, or in Orbit Laboratory. This is one of the many assets we're trying to deploy in orbit and on the ground to facilitate this end-to-end testing and integration. So following 3GPP standard, from following release 17 to 19, so therefore covering ranging from IoT to broadband. We want to put integrated in-orbit laboratory where we put available to the European and global industry assets. Sigillino is one, but there are other in making, planning, and being launched. And call upon mobile network operator and satellite network operator to test these new capabilities, advise the new standard from 5G to 6G, and continue to drive the technology into the end-user product to drive mass scale drive the cost down, and provide the adoption of large systems. So there is a lot of initiative behind this large-scale integration. Perhaps it's worth mentioning one of the recent initiatives we are going to launch from Q1 next year, what we call large-scale non-terrestrial network trials in Europe, together with some of the European Commission players, specifically one of the projects called 6G Sandbox, which is a consortium of a large number of terrestrial and satellite industries. We're going to launch some large-scale European trials, utilizing some of these in-orbit assets that we mentioned, and also all kind of ground infrastructure. We have a state-of-the-art 5G, 6G hub here in the UK, which we manage from Harwell. We also collaborated with GSMA, with the GSMA Foundry, and together we can deploy a number, make available a number of in-orbit, on-the-ground infrastructure to be able to prove some of these large-scale use cases in Europe, for example, automotive, but also many others.
That's good. So, Yasir, on the front end, obviously your partners are the guys who's going to be delivering this, and you've got to work with these guys. What's your perspective from your company's point of view? What are you hearing, and what about your customers, your clients?
I think we work a lot with satellite operators and network operators as well. And the challenges always have been in the interoperability, the standards to begin with that will frame the whole, not only the technical standards, but also the BSS and the OSS interoperabilities, because if you want to build an open ecosystem rather than a closed system that's dominant by one or two players, I think until now Open RAN having a lot of challenges. That's on the terrestrial only, but imagine the complexity when you involve satellite operators. So we see a lot of challenges even when we are doing traditional satellite to terrestrial communication, when we're integrating with network operators and cross-billing, OSS, metering. Not only that, but also customizing the delivery for every specific applications. When you are developing an IoT application, it's going to have a different profile, communication profile than when you are delivering a broadband. Maybe somebody's doing social communication, you have a different profile, and you need to rely this information across the whole network. So if you are doing like a testing one-to-one from like application to device, and you are in control of the whole chain, it's easy to test. But if you have like 2 or 3 intermediary partners, like we are doing ground segment, uplinking, our equipment, everything have to communicate these messages, and you have to understand what you are trying to deliver in real time, because the application can change from time to time. You cannot fix one profile. But also the billing, then the billing sometimes is not going to be like a flat rate, like internet. Maybe if you are doing vehicle-to-vehicle communication, you need a different profile for latency, for SLA, and all of these things dedicate higher level of integration, operability. Start with the standardization, but also the implementation and working on an open standard to deliver these services.
That's good. So, Isabelle, so last year you mentioned you had the collaboration with the GSMA and ISA, working together on the NTN-TN integration. How has it been over the last 12 months?
It's worked very well on many fronts. On some areas, and I think we can be very open about it, spectrum in particular, it's not yet an easy ride. We expect it to become better, but overall, I think it's been very important for us to work together. Even you were mentioning 3GPP. Just the fact that we have a cooperation agreement has also made it easier in forums like 3GPP in the standard to have a more positive outlook on how these industries, we've always seen satellite and terrestrial, satellite mobile, whatever you want to call it, as really being not opposed, but not having an easy ride together. And I think it's no longer about competing with each other. It's about collaborating so that we can move forward. But so that's what we are trying to do, and I think working with ISA, working with GSMA is great in that sense. It's us as organization, but mainly, let's be honest, the work is done by our members. It's how we bring both sides of the members through to the table. There are regulatory issues that will need to be sorted, and it's not easy. It's not easy because we are both global associations. And an operator in the US, even when we talk just about D2D, and an operator in the US will not have the same business model, certainly in that partnership, that an operator in Rwanda may have. So there are also, geographies, geopolitical issues beyond the technical and commercial issues that we need to. But when it comes to our role, I think our cooperation is good. And for us, the important thing is to bring us to the table together. And I think all these guys are more on the technical engineering side. I'm more of a policy person. So I speak to a lot of regulators, a lot of ministers, policymakers. They really need help. They need help to understand what is happening to this market that they have seen very segmented. They used to deal with MNOs. They used to deal with satellite operators. And now all of a sudden, they have to deal with something that is converging. And I think it's our role to provide that kind of first education in how it all works, what are the products, what are the solutions that we are going to be offering. And I think even issues like capacity building, workshops. I know we were talking with Antonio as well, and possibly GSMA to invite MEPs, the European Parliament, because there is a big space, made the EU Space Act that is on the table. This is the first time that there is such a piece of regulation for the sector. So MEPs need to understand how it all works, because they're just going to come up with some little words that sound very, innocuous in a text, and it could have massive implications on your business, on all our businesses. So I think corporations like ours, even just to make the policymakers, the world or their businesses understand that we are willing to cooperate, that we are happy to collaborate, is very important. It's good for the business.
And WRC 27 seems a long way off now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A few little wrinkles to iron out before then. But Alex, Antonio, what's your take on the partnership and how everything's playing out, and how are these industries going to work together?
I think Isa nailed it. I mean, we're working fantastically well on the technical level. Sometimes on the regulatory front, there are one or two issues where we're just going to have to agree to disagree, but we're grown-ups, we're professionals, we can do that. I think just to highlight some of the things we are working on, because Yasir mentioned all the billing and stuff. Well, that's something that was solved for the cellular industry in the 90s. And actually, I was signing cellular roaming agreements with satellite at the end of the 90s. So it's relatively easy to use the processes we've already got. Now, satellite does need one or two things that are a little bit different, so we're already working on effectively the billing data that gets exchanged between operators to try and make that happen. With the handsets, even something as boring as testing and certification of regular devices, there's some extra capabilities now in those devices because of the 3GPP stuff that needs to be tested. Now, we write the test cases that are then used by the certification bodies like the PTCRB in the US and GCF elsewhere. We're already working on some of the test cases to do that. So it's practical stuff to make sure interoperability isn't just a buzzword, it actually works. And as you said, yes, and not just on a technical level, it has to work on the business level as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think we're very, very extremely happy with the collaboration we had for the last couple of years together. One of the objectives of the collaboration was to raise the global awareness of this integration terrestrial and non-terrestrial networks. And I think we have done it in a number of ways. First of all, the participation in Mobile World Congress, as Alex was mentioning. Mobile World Congress is the biggest terrestrial cellular conference in the world. And it started off 4 or 5 years ago where there were 2 or 3 large satellite operators present, and that was about it, maybe Fraunhofer. But now in the last couple of years, I think the number of satellite companies, I think raised to something in the order of 100, last time I called. And also I think together raising the global awareness, perhaps one thing worth mentioning, together we set up 2 global groups with GSMA and also with GSOA. One is the GSMA NTN community, So GSMA itself, among its members, set up an NTN community to promote awareness among the mobile network operators and the terrestrial ecosystem about NTN. And that's, for the moment, limited to GSMA members. But also in parallel with that, we set up the NTN Forum, which is non-limited to NTN members. And together, collectively, the NTN community plus the NTN Forum now counts more than 700 or 800 members. They both been set up last year. So in 1 year, I think globally, there's so much more awareness of what the importance of this integration, the importance of standardization, the importance of harmonizing the space industry inputs into the 3GPP standardization. So for me, that's a big win. And another practical example of the collaboration recently has been the challenges. So through GSMA, together we announced what we call GSMA challenges. These are open call for proposal from the global industry to apply to the challenge, which then get funneled through some ESA public funding, and the winner get funded to develop terrestrial and non-terrestrial solution. Through the GSMA channels, we reach a much wider community of non-space actors, which is precisely what we from ESA intend to do, to attract non-space actors and space actors working together. So that's another practical example of how this collaboration works for all of us in a pragmatic way.
Is there any thoughts on the roaming models that might come about, or Yasir, do you?
On roaming, I think the good thing about GSMA and satellite industry coming together is standardizing like roaming agreements. Satellite have always been a very fragmented ecosystem where there are a lot of standardization, but the implementation is very weak. The only thing I think everybody have like a universal terminal is your TV receiver. But even among, satellite systems, you have lots of players, and their terminal, they don't talk to each other. If you brought something from Hughes, you try to plug it with iDirect, it doesn't work. DVB-S have a lot of standards being forced, RCS2 and everything, but every implementation is unique. And the pricing level is completely different. We as a managed service provider, we don't have like a very fixed rate for different set of roaming. If somebody's roaming my network, I don't have the same pricing plan. But I think with the GSMA being in the industry of standardization and bringing business model together, I think we'll learn a lot by working together, so we can standardize like roaming, the technology from mass scale. Probably we'll have like adopt a standard terminal, and then this terminal have to roam between networks. So there will be a network agreement. Most probably it will be led by mobile network operators. Probably the satellite operators will move on the back, or they'll move in the front. Nobody knows, but we see that's the most advantage of bringing the business into like being able to roam over satellite networks and with the standard equipment that you can use everywhere across the ecosystem. It's not going to be a single UE, but for IoT, probably you need something like if you have a herd, you need a smaller terminal, but it will talk the same compatibility. It will have a specific price plan that you can use across different networks. And this is very challenging, but I think it's a roadmap because you need to bring these fragmented satellite systems and satellite operators together. And I guess we'll have some role to do in that.
Yeah. And if I may just add to that, because it's something we hear a lot, even within the industry, of course, sitting at the table, sometimes, why can't we be as organized as the mobile industry was at the beginning in terms of standards? Why can't we have? This is something that has come to the discussion many, many times within GSOA. We started working on it, and NSG, and I see Mark here, and I know they're your gold sponsors, with the Saudi government recently as well, really have done great efforts where we've been involved with other satellite operators as well, to really start, do work around the standardization area. So there is really a sense of urgency there that we as an industry have, and I know I see Mark here, and Mark has he's leading a great initiative with NSG on this standardization. So just wanted to point that out as well.
just bringing Rainer back in for on the technology side. D2D, NTN. What options are there for the ground stations?
For the ground stations, so not for the user equipment, but for the ground stations. Yeah. So for me, it could be classical ground stations, which are possible to track LEO satellites. That's it, more or less. So once you have the G-Node B on board, you need an IP connection in the back, and that's it. If it's DVB S2X or a different waveform, I think that's the point. The question is how many of these ground stations you need, depending on the different satellite systems which may come up. So that's maybe an additional question. Who will be the ones who will build these kind of satellite systems, bringing G-Node Bs on board? So we have IRIS², which is very likely to have something like that. Who else is doing this currently? Maybe Starlink has some frequencies at least acquired. Maybe they do something, but yeah, who else? So we need additional satellites to provide to get D2D, and then we figure out that okay, we need ground stations, capable ground stations. Maybe not too many of them, that they can connect to several satellites. And in my opinion, it's the backbone or the connection to the core network. That's IP connection, and we are quite flexible in that direction, I would say. Yeah.
Yasir, what about the cost of these ground segments? Do you think it's going to be an issue?
The ground segment infrastructure, I don't think it's going to be a very big impact on the cost, because there will be a lot of implementation, especially with the LEO constellations, until intercommunication links are there. Still, you need to land within country because of the regulatory. So I know with the Starlink, they have laser links, but they are forced to land within country if they need to operate because of sovereignty and regularity. So even if you are flying over an area like Africa, we have like maybe 30 or 50 countries within the spot beam, but you still need to land in each one of them to comply with the regulatory in country. So there will be a lot of boom for ground segments, and these ground segments basically you can either have a partner in country to operate and run this. It's going to add to the value chain, and it's going to be part of the cost that's passed to the end user. But with volume, I think this is an insignificant cost. Most of the cost will be basically in the spectrum. That's really now is the driving cost for user. But I think the ground segment is going to be a part of the ecosystem, but it's not really going to be a significant, but as volume, it will be a lot. So you'll have a lot of ground segment infrastructure in presence.
Okay, so we'll open it up to the floor. Very fast. Quick arm up.
Yes. Hello, Rim Feliashi. I work with Mark at the Neo Space Group. So you talked a lot about 5G, 6G, and standardization in terms of 3GPP and spectrum regulatory. There is one element to it that maybe you haven't addressed, and I would like to have your view on it. So when we talk about D2D, well, there is the mass aspect, obviously, and the main challenge is to bring costs down. So enabling the ecosystem and enabling partnership, and that's great. But there are also some critical applications that would require some innovation to work on D2D, but the problem would be regulatory. I'm not talking about spectrum, I'm talking about industry standards for safety and security. And you talked about awareness. So is there work with these regulations and standard organizations to bring them up to speed with the development on D2D, so innovation doesn't become obsolete when it's launched because of regulatory hurdles?
Well, from our side, I mean, when 3GPP again is the body where we go for standards, and our operators are there, we work there. So when we discuss standards, it's not only standards, we are I mean, I was there a few months ago presenting on new services, D2D. So it's really trying to raise the awareness as well of what are the solutions that we are going to bring, to the market, so that, yes, that the room that is maybe a room of engineers that are more like on the standards also understand why we need, to break whatever barriers are still there. So yes, is there more work to do? Probably, and maybe I can look at Antonio, and then maybe that's something where we need to be, we need to raise more awareness within the standard bodies on really what are we delivering, what are the services, and raise more the awareness.
Yeah, I think if I may, thank you very much. If I understand, I think it's a very good question, and yes, standardization is standardizing the protocol, the infrastructure, but I think what you refer to is working with the actual end users and what kind of requirements they impose on the system. And I can make a couple of examples. We do work very much with vertical market stakeholders. Let's take the automotive market, since it's been mentioned. And of course, direct to device, the device can be a car in this case. So the device which requires the services is automotive. And there are a number of requirements on safety, security, integrity of data, and continuity of service, and so on and so forth. And we work, for example, with the 5G Automotive Association, and together we establish a number of requirements. The 5G AA itself is now providing inputs into the 3GPP standardization. And those inputs, those requirements will drive some of the system choices. For example, the autonomous driving, the autonomy, the level of progressive autonomy requires more and more stringent requirements on the networks, and the network can be provided by complementarity, terrestrial and satellite access. Some of the service roadmap coming from the 5G Automobile Association, in fact, is looking at safety as #1 requirement. And in that respect, for example, they foresee the provision of direct-to-device services coming first from a low frequency range, like L and S band, because those are the frequency range which provide more guarantee or quality of service and safety requirements. And then eventually moving up the scale of frequency to increase broadband level for less, for services which require a lower level of security, for example. Another big sector remaining on the terrestrial mobile is the railway sector, and the future of rail mobility, FRMCS, Future Rail Mobile Communication Services, is based on 5G standardization, and those railway requirements impose an extra level of requirements. So yes, 3GPP standards, yes, 5G, but in order for satellite to offer FRMCS services, we need to provide a much wider level of security and safety. So yeah, I think in general, a lot of work is required. We are doing it to a certain extent with all the various vertical market stakeholders, which rely on 3GPP standard, but then with an extra layer of requirement on top to guarantee the level of QoS that they require. I don't know if that was the element to the question.
Hi, Jyoti Basin from VIV Solutions. I've got plenty of questions, but I'll find you during the break. I'll ask just two. One is on the standardization. So we see a lot of work that is happening with Starlink and probably Kuiper. Are they engaged in the standardization activity, or they are doing something on their own? And then how does all of this come together? And the second on business model. So, I mean, there's a lot of investment happening both in TN and NTN. How are we going to recoup them? Because the general model that the MNOs have so far is that, they've started giving free things as a differentiator. So are they going to charge for new services like satellite telecom as D2D, or again, this is going to be another differentiator and we repeat the whole thing as we've done in 4G and 5G? Thank you.
So I can probably tackle the last bit. I think sorry, my hearing's not very good. So if I understood the question, it's around how the service is going to be charged for. Mm-hmm. Again, in the satellite and NTN tracker we just published, we've got some examples. I would say it's really early days. You can all see the sort of service that's already being provided, My phone has a nice little satellite icon. At the moment, it's a mixture of free, particularly for the premium subscribers in high-income markets, and then there's usually a bolt-on for everyone else. There are numbers bandied around from like 10 to 30% uplift, which I would caution will only work in a market like North America or maybe Japan, Korea. You know, if you're in most parts of the world where the average revenue per month is somewhere between $2 and $5, you know, you have to be a bit more modest in your expectation. But I would say, honestly, it's far too early at this point in time. I think with the majority of direct-to-device services being effectively emergency SMS best effort, there's a limited amount you can charge for that. Although we did have one statistic in our survey. We did survey users, and 30% of them said they would be willing to churn potentially if one operator didn't have satellite services and the other one did. But again, that's all in the report. I would caution it's probably far too early to draw conclusions on that one. But I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question. I didn't really understand.
The first part was Starlink.
Are they coming together on standardization, or are they still doing their own thing, and then it becomes whatever they're doing becomes a 5%?
Only to Africa, Mike.
So just to clarify as well that Starlink are not a member of GSOA
Or GSMA.
or GSMA. So that should answer already half of your question. So they are not members also. When we go as an industry to 3GPP, we go without Starlink. I do not believe they are definitely involved in the ITU, that I can say, because 3GPP, I don't know, maybe Antonio, you go more than me. I don't know if they are involved in the...
Yeah, so maybe I can say a little bit more. So I think you can classify operators in a matrix 2 by 2. So either satellite operator adopt 3GPP or doesn't adopt 3GPP, and then whether he uses terrestrial spectrum or satellite spectrum to provide the service. So we see a mixture in this 2 by 2 matrix with different operators taking different approaches. Up until a little while ago, Starlink was adopting the non-3GPP standard using terrestrial spectrum frequencies. Recently, with the last, couple of hundred satellites launched by Starlink, they claim that they're using the direct-to-device following 3GPP standards. So it looks there is a shift potentially to offer non-standard and terrestrial standard. And equally, on the spectrum side, I just mentioned before that with the spectrum acquisition of EcoStar right, Starlink will start using satellite spectrum as well. So basically, they will cover the 2 by 2 they will do both terrestrial and satellite spectrum. And at the moment, the current in-orbit satellite Starlink could potentially do both non-standard and standard 3GPP services. So there is a shift, we think. I think the majority of the other operators seems to be aligned around the standard 3GPP. Since you mentioned Starlink was non-standard up to now. The majority of the other operators seems to be aligning around the 3GPP standard, and most of them using satellite spectrum for the provision of D2D services.
And as an association, we definitely support the open standards and working towards them, because also I think you mentioned scale. That's the only way we are going to achieve scale. So we need the open standards.
And some of the operators really show up at 3GPP, so actively contribute to the standards. So at least my guys never said that there was Starlink.
Okay, so fast-moving industry, probably us guys in the satellite industry, it's we've never been in this situation as it is today. The GSM Association, I'm sure, has been through this. But so over the next 12 months, what in your organizations or companies can we expect to see, in the forthcoming 12 months? So Reina, what's going on with your...
So we will do additional demonstrations, even if it's broadband, or if if 6G Lino already flies, then there will be one of the first demonstrations in that direction with a G-Node B on board. There's other also ESA activities which also provide a G-Node B on board, but that's what we are doing and actively.
So the satellite is launching, yes?
Yes, hopefully, yeah. And we have another experiment in plan, but I cannot talk about that currently. Yeah.
We'll have to wait next 12 months to hear this.
Yeah.
Antonio?
Yeah, I think we will see more seamless integration of satellite and terrestrial coming along, more intelligence in the network, in the ground network, more and more intelligence, cloudification and softwareization. I think they're general trends, but they are happening. There will be simplified ground network able to service multi-orbit capabilities. And I think direct-to-device will definitely become very, very relevant in the next 12 months in one shape or the other. There are many operators, and we are supporting partnership with some of the satellite operators to develop direct-to-device services in the next few years. So within the next 12 months, I think it will become very, very clear who are the valid players and what are the promising opportunities. And the standard will be there, so I think we'll see more and more the industry pivoting towards that.
So it'll be clearer who's going to be the main items out there. Okay, Alex?
We were created to sort of guarantee interoperability in roaming. That's why we exist, and that will remain our focus. Obviously, working together with our partners, and that's the most important. All the practical, boring stuff that we've been discussing, anything from technical to business interoperability. Some really solid work needs to be done, and it's underway. And as Isa said, we're cooperating really well on that. What do you expect from the market? Well, I think we'll see a realistic assessment of what D2D is, which means definitely next year we'll see a ton of narrowband stuff, so SMS, voice. I'm intrigued to see what happens when the broadband guys start their services. That's going to be fascinating to watch. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be another exciting year.
Isabelle?
I don't know. I mean, taking it to the macro level is I've been in this industry 2.5 years. I've already seen 3 massive mergers. So I don't know what's going to happen in the next 12 months. Just meaning in a very positive way that it's a market that is thriving at the moment, and it's a market that is being disrupted as well. And so we are seeing, a lot of movement. But in terms of the offerings that are going to come, also, I think D2D is definitely going to be the service to watch in the next year, and also a strong believer of IoT and seeing where all this is going. And in particular, I just want to finish with that because we always talk about things that can be very technical standards, but let's not forget there are 2.6 billion people out there that are not connected. So whether you're ground segment, whether you're a launcher, whether you are an MNO, a satellite operator, our common goal is to ensure that within the next few years, decade, we connect all these people. And it doesn't matter whether it's satellite, where it's terrestrial, we should all work together towards that common goal.
Yeah, we are basically as a Saudi company and in the MENA region, basically Saudi Arabia have been huge initiatives in the satellite market. And we believe that D2D will be a very big player in the region. We are following closely with the regulator and directive, but we are bringing more partnership with the satellite operators in the region and also the telecom operators. We're in early communication to understand the directions. We believe ground segment will always be a very important part of this revolution. And we are working very closely with our partners to make sure that things happen smoothly with the partnership and the interoperabilities and resolving all technical and business issues together. So we are actually engaging more and more. We are forging stronger partnership with both satellite network operators and terrestrial or GSM network operators. And this is our vision.
Okay, so thank you very much to our panelists. It's been a pleasure being with you today.